Okay, so I have had a couple of surgeries. Maybe more than just a couple. And even though the surgery itself is always really hard to prepare for, I think the thing that I struggle the most in preparation is the days leading up, like everything I need to do beforehand and everything I'm going to need when I come home. So I'm going to talk about that today. Hey guys, it's Maggie and I am back today, and today I want to talk about preparing for surgery, the before and the after, and to give you a little bit of a resume for the surgeries that I've had done. They're mainly abdominal, dealing with my Crohn's disease, so I've had intestine removed, I've had drains placed, I've had dilations of my intestines, I've had my colon and rectum removed, I've had my kidney taken care of, I had a narrow ureter, so I had that done, I had scar tissue removal, and then I had sinus surgery. But most of my surgeries have dealt with my abdominal area. But I do want to make this video relevant to people who might be having different kinds of surgeries. Hopefully I can give you some tips no matter what you're facing. But before we get into it, I would like to thank today's sponsor. I didn't realize the impact that having an adjustable bed would make in the early post-op period as well as the long-term recovery. I have a lot of difficulty laying flat, especially immediately after surgeries. FlexiSpot has designed an incredible bed frame that allows you to move both the head and the foot of the bed up and down as you need it, which is perfect for somebody like me. Selecting the zero gravity option on the remote automatically positions the bed in a way that places the least amount of pressure on all of your body parts. It also has adjustable legs, so if you have difficulty getting in and out of taller beds, you can make this bed frame shorter. You can even remove the legs completely and place it on your existing bed base. I know after my proctocolectomy surgery, getting in and out of a tall bed was one of the hardest things to do. This bed frame shares the same core technology that exists in the FlexiSpot standing desks. I found this type of bed so useful in my recovery from many of my surgeries, and I think it's not just a great option for those of us post-op, but really a good investment for anyone for comfort. As much as I love this bed frame, I think that Zach, the person who's never had surgery, loves it more. And there's a bunch of little details that just make you understand the thought that went into their quality designs. Things like the retainer bars that help to hold the mattress in place as it moves, a little pocket that you can actually attach to the retainer bars to keep your remote handy at all times right next to you, the under the bed lights so at nighttime you don't have to worry if you can't find where you're going, and the 10-year non-prorated warranty. It's just all these little things make me love it. FlexiSpot is offering a $200 to $300 discount on Amazon Prime Day, so please make sure to check out the link in my description or the link in my pinned comment. I really know that if you decide to get one, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy the comfort. Hopefully, you're not getting it because you need surgery, but if you do, it really did make a huge difference in how I recover. Thank you so much to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. I very much appreciate it. Now, let's get into preparing for surgery. In the days and weeks leading up to your procedure, it's a really good idea to write down all of the questions that come to mind, and not just questions that come to your mind, but also your caregiver. If you have somebody who's going to be staying with you after surgery, see if they have any questions like, how long will you be in the hospital? How long until you think I can go home? What things am I going to need at home? Both of you, as it gets closer and closer to the surgery, are going to come up with these what if scenarios, and these are the perfect things to write down so you don't forget them and bring them to your surgeon. And a really good time to ask these questions is at a pre-op appointment. Most surgeries, there is some sort of appointment that happens prior to the surgery, usually within a few days or a week or so beforehand. This is the time that your surgeon is going to sit down with you and be ready to answer those questions. You can ask questions the day of your surgery, but you're nervous, they're focused on actually performing the procedure, and it's just kind of a hectic time. You're gonna have a lot of people coming into your room prior to the procedure to ask you questions, get consent, and things like that. So it gets a little hard for a surgeon to sit down and answer a whole list of questions then. I kind of categorize my questions into 3 sections. So the lead up to the surgery, the actual day of surgery, and then the post-op care. In the days leading up to your procedure, it's probably already likely that you've been given a whole list of tests to get. Usually these include things like pre-op blood work, a pre-op physical. It might be tests to look at whatever body part or organ is being operated on, so they know exactly what they're looking for when they get in there. Some of these tests happen weeks beforehand. Some happen only a day or 2 prior to the surgery, especially things like COVID tests, which, now is pretty common to get before procedures. Get yourself a calendar, bring it with you to your appointment, so if anything pops up, you can write it down on your calendar and have it handy. Also, this is a good time to ask if you should be making any post-op appointments, things like physical therapy or follow-up appointments with your surgeon, because sometimes these have to be scheduled well in advance so you actually get in when they want to see you. Ask about it prior to surgery so these appointments can be made. If things happen where maybe you aren't discharged in time for it, that can be adjusted afterwards, but it's a good idea to ask about it now. If there are any supplies that you might need after surgery, I would also ask about this. I'm coming from the world of ostomies, so if I was talking to somebody getting ostomy surgery, I would say maybe order some samples of different ostomy supplies. I know a lot of the large medical suppliers can offer free samples to you, even things like catheters or whatever. So if you suspect that you will need supplies afterwards, you can order a whole array so you can try them out afterwards. Obviously, you have to tailor this to whatever procedure you're having done. Maybe the only thing that you're gonna need is some sort of wound care, and you might wanna ask about that, but usually in that case, you're either going to have a home care nurse that assists you with it, or the hospital will send you home with some supplies so you can care for it when you're home. Also, if there is something like an ostomy or other medical devices that you'll go home with, the hospital will set up with you how to get your supplies and delivery, or they should. If they are not, that is something to ask them about before you are discharged, because I have heard of patients, I've had patients come to me saying that, they had an ostomy placed and they were given no way of ordering supplies. They had no idea how to do it, which is very unfortunate. Usually it's a language barrier that, at least in the cases that I've seen, it's a language barrier that, they weren't given education and they weren't given a way to order supplies. So ask about it. So for questions relating to the actual day of surgery, the first thing that comes to mind, because I'm always nervous about this, is parking. Do you know where you're gonna park? Do you know the directions to get to the parking lot or wherever? And do they require somebody to be with you the day of? If it's like an outpatient procedure, they usually require somebody to be with you so they know that you have a ride home. Also, knowing where to go in the hospital is helpful, or at least arriving a good amount of time beforehand. So if you do get a little bit turned around walking into the hospital, they're always very confusing. It gives you a little bit of extra time to get to the waiting room. Also ask, what are you allowed to bring with you? I've had different scenarios in my procedures. Sometimes they say give my stuff to whoever is with me. So when I was a kid, it was my dad, and now it's my husband. But I've also been given the option of putting my stuff in a locker. So it really depends on the facility, but definitely ask, can I bring stuff with me, or should I not? Should I leave it in the car? What should I do with my stuff? If you know you're going to be staying in the hospital for a few days or longer, it's always a good idea to ask about what you should be bringing with you. Will they allow at some point for you to wear your own pajamas, or do they require you to wear the hospital gown? Usually there's wiggle room. I will tell you that. Working as a nurse, we liked our patients to be in the hospital gowns, especially like on a GI floor where things get messy. But there were definitely times where, you make exceptions to the rule, so ask about it. Just ask, what should I be bringing? What should I be wearing? What supplies will you give me? Do you have toothbrushes, toothpaste, things like that? Most hospitals do. But you might want to bring things like headphones, a long phone charger. Don't get a real short one. Get a long one that you can ask somebody to plug into the wall that will reach all the way over to your bed. For the actual surgery, I usually ask how long they expect the procedure to take. Please note that what they tell you might change in the actual OR, because sometimes they go in there and they realize things are a little bit more difficult or a little harder to get to, so the surgery time takes longer. And make sure that your caregiver is also aware of that time. I try to get this time for Zach so he knows, about how long to expect and when he should start worrying. Also, think about if you've ever had any other procedures in the past, how they've gone for you, and any things that came up, any concerns that came up during those procedures. For example, for myself, I have a bit of a problem with nausea afterwards from the anesthesia. I just don't do well with it. I have thrown up on myself. I have thrown up for long periods of time after waking up from surgery, which is very painful. But yeah, it's a concern of mine. So now when I go in, I say, hey, I have issues with nausea afterwards. Is there anything we can do about it? And most of the time they have a plan for me. Usually we do IV Zofran, and sometimes they've even given me an anti-nausea patch that goes behind the ear. I don't really like that because it really dries out your mucous membrane, so it feels like hard to breathe afterwards. Usually the IV Zofran though seems to do the trick. But these are the things, like, look at your past experience and bring it to the table. You know your body best, and bringing that to your surgeon and telling, your surgeon and their team what to expect from you is helpful to them as well. You can also ask if this is a concern for you about medications to relax you. I don't think I've ever asked for medication to calm me down prior. I've been very fortunate that the nurses seem to read me pretty well, and they know when I'm in good spirits. Like, before I got my proctocolectomy, I was ready to go. I was like, everybody, get this done, throw that colon out. I'm so excited to be done with it. I was in good spirits. I don't think that they gave anything to calm me prior to going into the OR, but I had a scope done in the OR like a few months prior to this, to actually look at my colon and rectum to, determine if surgery was even needed. And I remember being pretty nervous for that. And there is a video clip in my intro, if you saw it, where I am being wheeled back to the OR. It was that day. It was that nurse that was wheeling me. He gave me something to calm me down before actually going into the OR. It was like in the hallway on the way to the OR because I was kind of shaking. So it definitely helped. Something to ask about if you are nervous. So definitely something to ask about if you are nervous the day of. That's completely normal to be, not thrilled that you're there and worried about what's going to happen. Surgery can be scary, and that's a totally valid feeling about it. And I have been there. Sometimes I'm like, let's rock it. And other times I'm just like, I'm so over this and I don't want to be here, and somebody please just knock me out. Some other things you can ask about are post-op pain management, especially if you have special considerations with it. I think people are worried about the pain level that they'll have afterwards, so get a good idea of how they're going to manage that for you. You can also ask about where you'll be within the hospital afterwards, what unit you'll be on, so if people want to come visit you, or your caregiver is interested in where they're going to go afterwards, you have that information. You can also ask about diet limitations leading up to the surgery as well as afterwards, because they usually advance the diet slowly to make sure that you're tolerating it. It really depends on what kind of surgery you're getting, but from my experience with mainly abdominal related stuff, it's always slow to advance my diet. Now let's talk about going home afterwards. Surgery is weird. Surgery always makes me feel uncomfortable in my own body. I think we get so used to just knowing how to move ourselves and, not injure ourselves. And when you have surgery, usually some part of the body you have to be very careful with. And I always find that so weird. I feel like I'm not me. It's like this is somebody else's body and I'm learning how to live in it. You just like have to be careful with body parts that you never even gave a second thought about. I always feel this way, particularly when I have multiple IVs and I have drains and I have, incisions all over my belly. You're like, what way can I move that I don't screw all of this up and like hurt myself? And I think that's one of the hardest things. What I will tell you though is that first day after surgery is the hardest in terms of that, because you're just connected to so many different things and you're learning what it feels like to be in pain after surgery and what ways you can move that don't exacerbate that. But as time goes on and you heal, we're assuming everything's gonna go well. As you heal, an IV gets removed, a catheter gets removed, and you slowly start to not just get yourself back, but also get used to your new normal. That alienated feeling that you have in your own body will go away. It just takes some time. And I think what's difficult is that in the hospital, you've got your nurse and your doctor and all these different caregivers to help not just explain it to you, but also help you move and help you like sit up in bed and go to the bathroom and all these things. And then when you go home, you're like, how the heck do I do this? You're figuring it out on your own. After I got the proctocolectomy surgery, one of the things about it is it's kind of hard to like separate your legs, so you can't take wide steps or anything like that. When I was in the hospital, the bed could lower and I had a nurse to help, lift me out of bed and sit me up and move me and do all these different things, hold my drains. But at home, I did have Zach, but I didn't know how to get into bed. And what I wound up doing was I actually had to get a stepladder in order to not separate my legs too far to rip my stitches. It's things like that that can make you worried to go home. And I say this not to worry you, but to have you think about what it might be like after the surgery when you're at home. Take a look at your house. What are the things that are going to make it difficult? One of the things for me is I'm a mess of a person, okay? And when I have surgery, the best thing for me to do beforehand is to straighten up the house. So that way there's not clutter anywhere. There's not a chair in the way if I need to walk down the hall. I don't know. Why would there be a chair in a hall? I don't know. But this is what I'm talking about. Look at the rugs on your floor. Make sure that they're like flat so you're not tripping over them. Anything that you can think that would get in the way and make things more difficult for you, take care of them beforehand, because you're not going to be able to do it afterwards. Also think about where you're going to be most comfortable camping. That's how I like to refer to it. Some people will stay most of the time and heal most of the time in their bed. Some people prefer the couch, some a recliner. We're all different, but wherever that spot is to you, make sure you've got your supplies set up before you even get home. So do this before you leave for the hospital. I put things like chapstick, TV remote, extra set of headphones, maybe a book or something like that, something to entertain me. My heating pad, a ponytail holder, all these different things that I might need and I'm not going to want to go searching for when I have just had surgery. And let's be honest, sometimes sending our significant other or our caregiver to go find the item that you know exactly where it is and you're describing exactly where it is, and they can't see it. They can't see it. Do you know how many times I've experienced this with Zach? Just the other day, Maggie, where's the green tea? It's in the cabinet that all of our tea is in. I just looked there, it's not there. And I was like, if I walk in this kitchen, if I get my butt out of my chair and I walk in this kitchen and it's in the cabinet that I said, it was there. And I was like, if you would just use your eyeballs. Anyways, get your stuff together beforehand so you don't have to send somebody else looking for it. A couple of other things to think about is your medications, both prescription and over-the-counter that you may use. You're probably going to be prescribed new medications in the hospital. I know in my case, I'm very fortunate. My hospital has a pharmacy within it, and I can actually get medication right as I leave the hospital. I've done that for a number of my procedures. But if there are medications that you're already taking beforehand and your stock is getting kind of low, make sure that you have enough of that medication for the time that you're healing at home, in the time that you're unable to leave the house, or have somebody be able to get you more, because finding out you only have like 1 or 2 pills left of something that you need when you get home from the hospital is so irritating. Make sure your prescriptions are all good, you got all the refills you need, take care of that beforehand. And on that same note, think about what you're going to want to eat. Getting enough food in you, getting enough nutrition is so important in the healing process. You might have dietary limitations, so obviously follow what your surgeon is saying on this, but have things that you like, things that you'll eat even when your appetite's low. A lot of the pain medications and all the other things that we're on, and just the stress that our body went through, appetites can be kind of low after surgery, so get things that you will definitely find enjoyable. You can even meal prep a little bit, make some freezer meals and have them ready to go. So you just pop them in the oven. Try to make things as simple as possible for you when it's going to be really difficult for you to do all of your normal activities. I am sure that there are probably 100 other things that I could tell you that I'm missing in this video, ways to prepare for your surgery. And I know that you guys will leave awesome comments of other tips to give people that are gonna be heading into surgery soon. But yes, hopefully this was helpful. And thank you again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. I very much appreciate the support on this channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon. Bye guys.